element that cannot be observed or encountered with the five senses. To go further, his body could not only be seen, touched, and handled, but it was a body of flesh and bone, according to Matthew 24:37 through 9. In fact, Jesus says a phantom, because when people first saw Jesus, some thought, I've seen a ghost.
Yeah.
I've seen a phantom. And Jesus corrects them and says, a phantom does not have flesh and bone as you see me have. In fact, Jesus even invites people to handle and examine his body. This is in Luke 24:39 and 40, in John 20:20 and 27. And so Jesus sets forth his resurrected body so that it could be inspected, it could be examined. Jesus even ate and drank with his disciples after the resurrection. This is found in Luke 24:41 through 43, and in Acts 10:41. Jesus consumes a fish. Now, why would he do that? I think clearly because he was conveying to them that he was not a phantom. This was a real bodily experience that he was having. And of course, having a meal with someone, there was a unity of a connection with his disciples in all of that.
Yeah.
Jesus' resurrection body was certainly material and physical in nature. Flesh, bone, could be handled, could be touched. Yet it had been transformed into a glorious, immortal, and imperishable body. Now, we can say that this resurrected body was clearly capable of things that ordinary mortal bodies are not. You know, for example, Jesus could appear and disappear in a closed room. There are a number of occasions where instead of walking up to the door and passing through the door, Jesus appears, materializes in a room that had been locked. So obviously, that resurrected body was the same physical body that had been crucified on Good Friday. Same body, had the marks of the cross, could be observed. People recognized him, but there was something changed about it. It was now immortal.
So you're saying that a body with flesh and bone, as you said, going through walls or doors, it's still a physical body. It does have that flesh and bone, but in some way it's been transformed. It has some type of property that we just don't understand, but it still did have that flesh and bone. He was touched.
And that, I think, is really where we want to come to, Joe, in talking about this, that historic Christians would insist that there's both a continuity and a discontinuity between Jesus' body before the resurrection and his body after the resurrection. This is not a different body. It's the same body. There is there is a connection. It's the same body. It's still physical. It's still material. Yet there's a discontinuity, meaning that it can no longer die. It also means that it had been transformed in that Jesus now has capacities and abilities that his earthly body did not have. And so we want to be able to emphasize that continuity and discontinuity, because if there's no continuity, then it's not the same body.
Right.
And if it's not the same body, then it's not literally a resurrected body from the dead. But we also don't want to convey that it didn't somehow change, because it did. And later on in the series, we'll talk a little bit about how we can anticipate that our bodies, you get a little older, you feel the pains of growing older. The resurrected body is a body that is immortal, that is glorified, and that has remarkable changes.
Ken, a couple of questions. Did something further occur at the time of the ascension then? There you have the resurrection, then you have an ascension. Did he just go up into heaven, or did another miracle happen at that time?
Well, I certainly think that we have a miraculous occurrence even in the ascension, but now Jesus has a body that has the capacity not only to experience earth, but also to live and dwell in the heavenly realm.
Yeah.
And so this glorified physical body, the scriptures also indicate, Joe, that when Jesus returns, we'll see him who they have pierced.
Yeah.
So Jesus has a physical body, and he remains human. He still has that human body, and that human body is now equipped both for the time-space world and also for this heavenly transcendental world.
Yeah. A couple of questions that my sharp 10-year-old might ask. Will we see scars in Jesus' hands or wrists then when we get to heaven?
Well, I think it is reasonable to conclude that when Jesus returns, he will still bear the marks of the cross. It was in his resurrected body. The implication is that we will see the one who was pierced for us. So I think it is reasonable to conclude that when Jesus returns at his second coming, we will still see evidence of that crucified body.
Yeah. And then another question on the body. My 10-year-old, because he likes food a lot, might say, will we be eating in heaven? Is Jesus eating and doing things that he might have done here, but just doing it better? Like, I don't know if you've seen the video of The Incredibles, these supers.
Yes.
They have these bodies that are able to do incredible things depending on which character they are. So is that kind of what Jesus is doing?
Well, certainly Jesus ate a fish after his resurrection. The Bible talks a lot about the feasts before God. I think the implication is that there will be an element that is tied to people coming together and celebrating. I'm hoping, though, that the Dodger dogs will be fat-free and those kind of things. So heaven and the new creation will involve our bodies. God likes bodies. We are never fully human unless there is a union of our soul and our body. And so this will have physical, material implications connected to it.
Yeah. So the important point, I guess one of the important points, again, is to emphasize that the same body that went into the grave emerged from the grave.
Yes.
It's that same physical body.
Same physical body, and now has changes.
Yeah.
And Joe, everything that we've talked about in these first two podcasts, either getting the story straight, the resurrection scenario, or defining what a resurrection is, I have a chapter in Without a Doubt, chapter 10, where I look at all of these details. All of the key scriptural references are made. So that would be a very helpful place to begin studying the doctrine of the resurrection and the hope of the Christian faith.
Right. And we will get into that hope in future podcasts. On the next podcast, Ken, what are you going to talk about?
Well, there are times where skeptics, of course, say the resurrection is a miracle, and I don't take miracles to be true. I only follow the naturalist perspective of things, and so we're going to look a little bit at the evidence and some of the mistakes that I think naturalists make when they look at the resurrection.
Great. We'll look forward to it next time. Ken is the author of 2 award-winning theologian and philosopher Kenneth Samples. Ken, we've been on a series on the resurrection here this spring, and we hope that people will find reason to believe in the resurrection if they had not believed so already. And you're going to continue with the topic for today.
Yeah, and this is my favorite time of year. I love the Easter season, and I hope that these discussions we've been engaging in will help people as they celebrate the resurrection and as they share that faith with their family and their friends.
All right, we'll get into that in just a little bit. I think you're going to talk about naturalistic